Welcome back to another episode of The Road Chose Me. My name's Dan Grech, and this is my brand new Jeep Gladiator that I'm about to start outfitting to drive all the way around Australia to all the remote and wild corners. And you can tell I'm pretty stoked. I haven't stopped grinning since I picked this thing up yesterday. So in today's video, I'll run you through all of the features, why I chose the one I did, and what options were available to me here in Australia, why I'm even driving a Jeep in the first place. I'm in Australia. I could drive anything that I want. So if you're interested to learn more about my Jeep Gladiator, stick around. I'll get into all the details right now. So as most of you know, I drove a little two-door Jeep Wrangler from the top of Alaska to the bottom of Argentina. Then I built a four-door Jeep Wrangler and I drove that all the way around Africa. So all told, that's over 100,000 miles through 55 countries, and I never had a major mechanical issue. Those two Jeeps took me everywhere I ever dreamed of going and a whole lot more without ever breaking down once. That makes them the perfect vehicles, in my opinion. So when it came time to choose a vehicle for Australia, I knew I was going to stick with Jeep again, and the Gladiator has just come on the market here. It's been out for about a year. But my interest in the Gladiator actually stretches all the way back just when I got back from Africa. I toured a bunch of shows in the US in 2019, and I got an invite to tour the Jeep assembly building in Toledo, Ohio. So while I didn't actually get to see this Gladiator getting assembled, I did stand right next to the assembly line where they mate the body and the bed onto the frame and turn it into a real life Jeep Gladiator. So that was an amazing day touring the Jeep factory. I'm so happy that I got to do that. And at the time, thinking about it, what I wanted was a Jeep that had more capability. It can carry more fuel, it can carry more water, and hopefully have a higher payload. More on that in a minute. And so ever since then, I've been turning over in my mind, how can I turn a Jeep Gladiator into my house on wheels so that I can have more amazing experiences, this time in Australia. And so here it is, I've chosen, this is a Gladiator Rubicon. And you're obviously wondering, why did I choose a Rubicon? Well, the options in Australia are quite a bit different than what you're used to in the US and Canada. And so there's kind of three trim levels here. There's the basic Sport, which is similar to what you know. There's the Overland in the middle, which kind of has all the luxury options, but it doesn't have the off-road goodies. And then on the high end, there's the Rubicon, which obviously involves all of the off-road goodies. And one of the fantastic things, Jeep Australia have just announced they've increased the payload of all the Gladiators in Australia now to 693 kilograms. That's 1,550 pounds. That's only 50 pounds shy of what you can get in the US, the Sport S with the Max Tow package. What that actually means is this Rubicon sitting here, it has a higher payload rating than a Rubicon that I could have bought in the US. Kind of strange, but that's how it goes. Payloads aren't necessarily limited by the manufacturer. It's not like the axles can't take it. We know they can because they're in other Dodge vehicles. It's not like the transmission can't take it. Again, it's in other Dodge vehicles that have a higher payload. It comes down to things like braking distances, cornering, handling, all of those things that are defined by government safety standards. And obviously, the government safety standards are different between the US and Australia. Another thing, this has slightly smaller tires. They're only 255/75s, even though it's a Rubicon. So maybe those smaller tires mean that it gets a better braking score, so then they can say, oh, we'll give it a higher payload because it meets the braking requirements, whatever they happen to be. But anyway, all of that to say is, getting a Rubicon, it doesn't have a negative impact on the payload here in Australia. It is the maximum payload that I could get out of any Gladiator. So that's a really good thing. Besides payload, there's another reason that I've chosen the Rubicon trim level for both of my Jeeps. The one I drove around Africa and now the one I'm going to drive around Australia. And it comes down to the features that are on this Rubicon model that would be very difficult or very expensive to add to a Sport or any other trim level. And the first one of those is the super low range transfer case in this thing. So of course, all of them have four-wheel drive, they all have low range, but in the Rubicon, it's a lower range first gear. And what that means is I don't want it because I'm a crazy rock crawler or anything like that, or because I'm gonna put 40-inch tires on this. I actually want it so I can go slower. And I know that sounds like a strange thing, but the reality is when we're overlanding, our vehicles are going to be heavy by the time we add fuel and water and camping gear and clothes and food and everything else. We know this will be right at its maximum weight. And when your vehicle's at its maximum weight, you go off-roading in that, it's gonna bounce around, it's gonna wallow. Those small ledges suddenly become quite large. So being able to go physically as slow as possible, it's really nice and gentle, not only on the machine, but also on your own body as you're getting bounced around in the driver's seat. So in Africa, most times when I was using low range first gear, it wasn't because I was going up something really steep. It wasn't because I really needed all that traction. It was simply because I wanted to go slower. I would take the clutch out in first gear and just let it roll over obstacles, and it would do it without breaking a sweat and without being difficult on the machine. So the transfer case is one of the reasons I wanted the Rubicon. The other one, of course, is the differential locks that are in both the front and the rear axle. These are from the factory, so you get a factory warranty. You know they're super reliable. In the more than 10 years the Rubicon's been available, Jeep have had an amazing reliability record with these lockers, so we know they're up to the task. And yeah, you can add lockers from the aftermarket. They're never going to be as reliable as this. And you end up with air lines, you end up with extra things added on. The reality is extra things always reduce reliability, they don't improve it. Another reason I went with the Rubicon package is because it has 4:10 ratios in both of the diffs. And again, you could get your diffs re-geared if you wanted to, but that's an additional expense. And especially here in Australia, that's really expensive. You probably have to get those gears shipped in from America. There aren't so many shops around that can do it. Labor here is really expensive per hour. Why pay all that additional money when I can just get one from the factory that's ready to go as it is? So for all of those reasons, the Rubicon is my trim level choice. This way I have maximum capability in the vehicle without going to something like a 37-inch tire or an enormous suspension lift. Because I already have diff locks, because I have the low range transfer case, because I have the low diff ratios, this vehicle is very capable right out of the box. That means I don't need to spend time and money modifying any of those driveline components. They're all ready to go. Where I'm going to spend my time and money is on living systems, solar panels, auxiliary batteries, fridge, kitchen, all of the things I want to be able to actually live. The Jeep itself, this will go anywhere I want right now. Other features that this Jeep has that I really like, I drove it home last night. It's got the LED headlight package. I don't know if that's an option or if it's standard on the Rubicon, but it is fantastic. These are easily the best headlights I've ever driven in any car. Low beam is exceptional, and it has a really good horizontal cutoff, so you're not blinding oncoming drivers. And then high beam really pushed out into the distance. I was impressed, and I felt confident that I wasn't going to smack into any kangaroos in my Jeep that I had owned for about 3 hours at that point. Another great feature of this is it has the 240 amp alternator. So it is the up-spec alternator, which means extra power to run the winch, to charge the auxiliary battery, all of those extra demands from all the electrical stuff I'm going to be adding, that'll be covered because the alternator is the up-spec version. It also has the auxiliary switches on the inside. They're going to be great for wiring up everything that I'm going to be adding to this thing. And I'm going to be honest with you, it has a few features that I didn't really need, but they came on this particular one. This was on the showroom floor. And here in Australia, it's difficult to get these things. Shortages are becoming real because of the production problems thanks to COVID. So it was kind of like, buy this one with a few extra things. For example, it has leather seats. I personally would have gone without them. It has the front trail camera. And I'm on the fence about that. I haven't even used it yet, so I can't say either way if I like it or not. This one actually even has heated seats, which again, here in Australia, I probably would have gone without. But, you know, this was on the factory floor. I liked the color. It was ready to go. So I jumped on it, and obviously I'm really happy with it. So I'm super stoked to be into my Gladiator, and actually Dad and I are gonna take a drive right now. He hasn't been for a drive yet. I can't wait to show him what it's all about. So that's the high level overview of the Jeep that I'm about to start outfitting. And in the next video coming up, I'll run you through the whole build plan, exactly what I'm going to add to this thing to turn it into a house on wheels. Because after all, I've said it many times, where you cook, where you sleep, and where you eat and hang out when the bugs are really bad, that is gonna make the biggest difference to your trip, not necessarily the badge on the front, the type of fuel that the vehicle burns, or how big your tires are, anything like that. Those are so far down the list. So the modifications that I make are all going to be about comfort and enjoyment and actual long-term travel in this vehicle. That's all coming up in the next video. And if you'd like to get a sneak peek at that video early, see all the mods and all the brands of gear that I already have lined up, and learn about the whys of what I'm doing, all those details and early access to all my videos, that's already over on Patreon right now. So these people are already supporting me on Patreon. They're getting access to all that behind the scenes content, early release content, and a whole lot more. Head on over to Patreon and you can join up and get access to all of that as well. So thanks again very much for watching. Stick around, lots of exciting updates coming soon.